All right, so in the last video, we talked about how we could approach beginning a project that would look like this. And so in this demonstration, I want to show you how you can actually do some of the image preparation so that you can end up, with this image that starts out that you end up, creating this masked area and then also this masked one where the top is transparent. Okay, because that's what we decided that we would need to create something that would end up looking like this and have this kind of functionality. So if we go into Photoshop, first let's open our base file. And I went to File, Open, and I'm going to find my folder. So I created a folder called Highway, and that's going to be my root level directory for the project. So inside of that, I also have a folder called Images. And so I'm going to use this, I'm going to take a peek at that. That's my road image. So I'm going to use that as the base image. So we'll say to open that file. And what I need to do is I need to start thinking about how I can get rid of some of the information for making some duplicate or copies of this file that have transparency. So first of all, if you haven't ever used Photoshop, this is going to be sort of like a really quick and dirty demo on how to do some basic selections, how to move around the interface. If you have used Photoshop before, then this is just a refresher, and it's an approach so that you can understand some different ways that we can get this done. So down here on the left, your tool panel, there is a magnification tool, and I'm going to blow this up so that we can see the information pretty clearly here. And you can see fairly clearly that there's this line, that separates this foreground from the background hills pretty well. So that's where I think I'm going to start. And before I do anything, I'm going to save this as a copy. I'm going to do File, Save As. This way I don't accidentally mess up my original. And I will call this Road Background. Or I'll call it, actually, let's call it Full Dash BG for background. All right, so I'm going to call it that, and I'll leave it as a JPEG. That's fine. And I'll just save it. And this, I'm going to leave it at the maximum quality for right now. Later we can optimize it. All right, so you'll see that we've got these pretty distinct lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just isolate the road, and to zoom out, if you hold down the Option key, you see how, or an Alt if you're on Windows, the little plus symbol turns into a negative symbol, so I can zoom out a little bit. All right, also if you're on a touchpad or you're on a trackpad, you can pinch and zoom as well, and you can move around like that with your fingers. So if I don't explain that again, just know that that's what I'm doing. All right, so what I'm going to do is over here on the left, I have this Polygon Lasso tool. So there's some different ways that I could try to approach this. I have the Polygon Lasso tool. If that's not what's showing, and you might see just the regular lasso. The regular lasso tool is not going to really be good for this because you don't really have a lot of control. See, I don't really have a whole lot of control over what it's doing. It's really good for making giant, really sort of crude general selections. To deselect, I'm going to hit Command or Control if you're on Windows. So Command D if you're on a Mac, D as in dog or D as in deselect, or Control D. All right, so I don't like the regular lasso tool for that. I could also try the magnetic lasso tool, and what you'll see is that it is a magnet to values that are within a certain range. You can also see that I've got a feather up here in the options panel, and I don't really want to have a feather on it. Or you could have a feather, it's really up to you. A feather is going to be sort of a blurring or softening of the edge, and so sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's not. It depends really on the quality of your selection and also the way that your image is. So you can always add the feather later, but you can't take it away. So I'm actually going to tell it to be 0 pixels for my feather. And I'm going to show you for this magnetic tool kind of the way it works. So if I start clicking somewhere and I start to drag, if I drag really quickly, it sort of gets confused and it kind of makes some bumps around, but it's not doing too bad of a job actually. So you have to kind of just be really careful with the magnetic lasso tool. The other thing too is that you get yourself in a quandary here where you get to the edge, you can't really see what's about to happen. That's where the magnetic lasso tool can be a problem because it's still going to want to drop its anchor points. So if you get in a situation where you can't really see what's going on very well, but you like having it blown up, then you can either keep trying to do what I'm doing and then go back later and decide, okay, well, I'm going to fix the selection later. All right, see, like that little thing, that little jog, I'm going to have to fix that later. It took too much. And then, so we'll go ahead and finish making our selection, all right? And then I come down to the bottom, and then I go over here, and this is pretty crude at the bottom. It doesn't really matter all that much. So I'm just sort of going. I'll come back up, and I'm going to close it, and you see I get a little circle that shows up here on the end of the magnet tool, and then I click it. When I see that circle, it means I'm going to close the pathway. So it's not a perfect selection, but I can easily come back, especially down here. It'll be really simple to fix. And I probably need to fix this little bump right here, and I probably need to fix this little dip right here. And then over here, I think I have maybe, this gets a little bit confusing because it sort of is where it starts to visually blend, but I have to make a decision, and I'm going to just leave that. It's okay. This is probably all right. I can blow it up a whole lot more. This, I have to fix that little bump. All right, so that gives you some ideas. Now, since the magnetic lasso didn't do a good job on some of those spots, it's a lot easier then to go back and use the Polygon Lasso tool. The Polygon Lasso tool is going to, it's not going to like lay down anchor points like the last one. What it's going to do instead is it's going to actually allow you to click. So it'll draw a series of straight lines. Now I'm going to blow up, I'm going to zoom in. I'm on a, because I am on a trackpad, I'm on a laptop, I'm able to just zoom by using my finger gestures with a pinch and zoom. If you're on a mouse, you can use your third wheel mouse button if it's set up properly so that you can pinch and zoom, or excuse me, so you can scroll up or scroll down. And if neither of those things is true, then you can always come down here and you can use your magnification tool. So I'm going to zoom in so I can see this really, really well. And you'll see that maybe some of this other selection, and then I blew it up a little too much so it starts to show me all the pixel grids. All right, so what I'm going to do is if I hold down my shift key, you see that I get a little plus symbol next to my lasso tool. You have to hold down shift if you want to add to a selection. If you want to remove part of an existing selection, you would hold down option. You see a little minus key shows up, okay? Now, if you don't do that and you just click, you're going to lose your old selection. So make sure that you have the shift key held down, and then you're just going to add to the selection where you need to add, okay? So like for instance, and then, oh, by the way, I let up off the shift key. As long as you held shift before you clicked the first one, that's fine. And then you got to find your origin point. And you see it turns into a little circle. That means I'm going to close the path. All right, so I just added to my selection. Now I want to remove this bump from my selection. So I'll hold down option and I'll click. And I will, let's be kind of really specific and careful. I can get rid of some other pixels that I didn't necessarily want in there. All right, so I got rid of that. So that's kind of nice. Now this might sort of be a problem for me later potentially, this little dark spot. So I might want to include that. The problem is that if I include too much of the white, that's where I'll get into trouble because it'll actually show like a little light colored halo. So we'll just see what we get with this. And then I can go back and just, while I'm zoomed in, fix some more of these spots that I need to probably add to the selection. And I try to be really careful to make really good selections to begin with. And I definitely need to fix this whole thing here. Oops, I can't seem to get it. There we go. All right, so I'm going to hold down the Option key to get rid of part of this selection. All right, and I'll just follow the contour of that those dark pixels in that hill. Okay, and then the other thing that's nice about using the Polygon Lasso is you can click outside the boundary of the workspace out here. Okay, now where this is set up on the edge, I need to add to the selection there, so I can click, here, and then I can scroll down. For instance, let's just say that I'm going to do this, and I'll get the rest with an easier selection tool. So I'll come up here and I'll finish my selection like that, and it's okay that I have some of my selection outside the boundary of the picture plane. That's fine. And then so let me come in and fix some of this. Some of this might look kind of minuscule to you, but I guarantee that it could make a difference in the way that this ends up looking. All right. Oops, and I accidentally clicked. I didn't mean to. So if I hit Command or Control Z for undo, it should come back. If for some reason it doesn't, you can come up here to File, or excuse me, Edit, and then you can say Step Backwards, or you know, yeah, Step Backwards. Okay, so I think I want to try to like smooth out this a little bit. And there we go. And you know, so you might kind of look at some of this and go, well, I don't know, that doesn't look like the right part of the hill because it kind of like slopes down here. So maybe I actually don't want to keep that. Maybe I actually want to exclude that, I think. So let's take some of that out. And we're going to have it like sort of slope with the hill this way. All right, so I'll take this out of the selection like that. All right, and then the other thing too is it looks like it eats in a little bit here. It eats into the road. Oh, can't blow it up that much. Okay, it eats into the road, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key and make sure that I include the part of the road so it doesn't get weird on me whenever I'm scrolling later. And let's just say that we're going to kind of leave it with some of that the way it is, and I need to fix this part, so I need to option this one out or Alt key it if you're on Windows. All right. So now we've got a pretty good selection, and then, oh, and then we have to also fix this, I said, right? So I'll add this part, and I'll just kind of do this, right? So I'll add this part to the selection. And then from down here, if I want to zoom out, holding down Option, right? Then what I can do is I can see like the entire picture, and now you'd be able to see that in fact I could just draw a marquee with the square marquee tool, holding down Shift to add. I'm going to just draw it all the way across so that it actually adds it properly, okay? And remember, I have a little bit extra selected out here. Okay, so now that I've got that selection made, what I could do is I can go to my layers panel. So you'll look for something that looks like this over here. It's my layers. If that doesn't show up, it's not visible or it's not easy to find, you can always go up to Window and then choose Layers from here. All right, and you'll notice that this has a lock on it for the background. Well, we can take that off, or we could also duplicate it. Now, just to be really clear, before I apply a mask, I actually want to save my selection in case I need to go back and refine it or something. So I'm going to go up here to Select at the top, and I'm going to say Save Selection, and I'll call this Bottom Road. Okay, so that I know that I have selected the bottom road, and I'll tell it to be in a new channel and just leave these things up here default. So say okay. So now that's selected. So let's say that I accidentally deselect and I do other stuff, and for some reason I make a mistake and I can't go back in my history, right? By the way, this is your history. So you can always go back steps. Now, if I lose my selection, I can go up here then to select, and I can say load selection. It'll ask me which one. I can choose from the list if there are other ones and say bottom road. I select OK, and then it'll load it for me. Pretty cool. All right, so now I'm going to just make a duplicate, and I'll turn this eyeball off over here in the layer panel. And so where it says background copy, I'm going to double click and I'm going to rename that, and I'll call it road or bottom road or something like that. Okay. And then what I'll do on this one is I will go down to the bottom of my layer panel, and there's like a little rectangle with a circle in the center. That is the layer mask. I will click that, and you see what it does is it actually will create this mask for me so that it masks out all that other stuff, right?